I have met many people on my adventures, characters from all different backgrounds, from lands both on my doorstep and far, far away. A handful of these people were survivors from the Enclave, which, considering my own background, I am sure is of no surprise to you, traveller. Deserters, ex-soldiers left for dead on the battlefield, each one swearing the same flag I did many years ago. While some were unwilling to share much about the atrocities they had once been a part of, others had stories to tell. Some were more tame, some were horrifying. One that stuck out to me was a survivor from the capital wasteland, who told a tale of their time stationed at the Jefferson Memorial, when in the distance what seemed to be a small squadron of Brotherhood of Steel soldiers emerged from the smoke of a fallen vertibird. At first this seemed like an easy objective to the soldier and her teammates. That was until a loud clanking sound could be heard behind the soldiers of steel, and a giant silhouette faded into view. Gigantic laser beams fired from the creature's eyes, vaporizing her teammates in a matter of seconds. She swiftly jumped into the water to survive the onslaught, as the monster exclaimed anti-communist propaganda.
Democracy is non-negotiable.
They called it Liberty Prime. A hero to the Brotherhood, but to the Enclave and anyone who was considered an enemy of the Brotherhood of Steel, a marauder, a monster, death incarnate. I never got to see this mechanical monstrosity in action, thankfully, but I'm sure that you don't like the idea of having giant blue eye lasers that can vaporize you in seconds shot at you, or nuclear warheads thrown directly at your feet like it's the Great War all over again as much as I don't. With that, my name is The Wanderer, and this is the story of Liberty Prime.
Commencing tactical assessment. Red Chinese threat detected.
To truly understand a threat and overcome its fear factor, one must look to its origins. For this, I take you back to a time before the wasteland as we know it, the 2060s. Peace became a very distant memory, as tension between China and America grew ever tighter. America moved a large military presence to Anchorage, Alaska, out of fear of China invading after they had almost completely conquered the Pacific Ocean. What America feared happened. China began their invasion of Alaska using drone-like robots and highly advanced tanks. America fought valiantly, whilst military companies like Westtech scrambled to get game-changing support such as the T-51B power armor finished and ready for deployment. During this time, General Atomics, Robco, and the United States government met to discuss another possible playing card they could add to this shitshow of a caravan game. A gigantic, nearly indestructible robot that could step on Chinese soldiers over the barricades and trenches that the US Army resided in, as well as fire lasers and throw nuclear warheads. The perfect soldier, a counter to the tanks and drones that were causing the valiant troops of America a large amount of casualties on the field. Work began sometime in the following years after plans had been fully realized, and although the robot was able to walk, talk, and stomp on objects, its scientific mumbo-jumbo which enabled it to use its lasers and warheads were offline, as it was consuming a lot of energy to operate properly. This would take a lot of time to fix, and ultimately was never solved. Instead, America resorted to using various other methods to drive the Chinese off their soil. The T-51B power armor project, the T-45 power armor project, and a large arsenal of weapons were only some of these. There were heavy losses on both sides, but America managed to push the Chinese away from invasion without the aid of Liberty Prime. This was just the beginning, however, and by 2077, everything came to an end.
Attention citizens, nuclear strike imminent. Please exit the area at your earliest convenience. Thank you for your cooperation.
As the world fell into an atomic apocalypse, so did any hope of this General Atomics and Robco partnership project going anywhere. Left disassembled in a pile of parts in the lower levels of the Pentagon building in Washington, D.C., to collect the dust and ash of the new world. In the 2250s, nearly 200 years after the Sino-American War had ended, a chapter of the Brotherhood of Steel was sent east from their origin site in California. They were sent east for a multitude of reasons and objectives, all of which I covered in my previous entries into this series. It's amazing just how far the Brotherhood came from Broken Hills, through Legion-occupied land, uncharted and irradiated valleys, all just to find the jewel that cried for help, the capital wasteland. The Brotherhood found an excellent site to settle in at the Pentagon, now named the Citadel by its inhabitants. As the Brotherhood began to settle in and discover more of this place they had found, the scribes travelled into the basement to find a large, disassembled robot. This robot was Liberty Prime, the joint General Atomics and Robco project that, due to a multitude of issues, remained unfinished and unusable during the war that raged 200 years beforehand. Elder Lions and the scribes saw this robot as not just a tool to utilise, or a pile of scrap to use for parts to maintain their arsenal. Liberty Prime was hope. Hope for the Brotherhood's might. Hope for the wasteland. By 2277, this robot had been fully placed back together, and everything that the powers of the past had failed to fix were finished by the Brotherhood with the help of a local genius named Dr. Lee. Despite being not ready for field testing just yet, the Brotherhood were confident in their metal giant, and held out hope to see him in action soon. Those wishes would come true when the Brotherhood were thrusted into yet another war on Washington DC's soil. Just as the super mutants were maintaining their status as the big green marauders in the capital wasteland, the Enclave had reared its ugly head once again. Despite not directly fighting the Enclave back west, the Brotherhood knew of them, and knew a lot about them as well considering how much spying they did. This time around, it was the Brotherhood of Steel's responsibility to take care of these genocidal remnants of the US government, and they had just the right tool for the job. When the time came to take back the Jefferson Memorial from the Enclave and save Project Purity, the Lone Wanderer, Lion's Pride, and Liberty Prime stormed their way to the memorial, fighting many Enclave soldiers and vertibirds as they went. Despite the Enclave's desperate efforts to stop the Brotherhood of Steel, they proved no match for the Brotherhood's big metal friend. Liberty Prime proved successful in the Brotherhood's first proper use in a firefight, and so he was kept in active duty after the Purifier was successfully started and taken over, going from place to place with a large squad of Brotherhood soldiers, fighting Enclave remnants, muties, raiders, and whatnot. The Brotherhood were a force to be reckoned with so long as this Liberty Prime was under their command. With the Lone Wanderer reawakening after a 2-week coma from the Purifier incident, the Vault Dweller was sent with the Brotherhood of Steel and Liberty Prime to take out yet another Enclave remnant location, an old satellite array through the Rockland Car Tunnel, which the Enclave had got operational. This proved to the Brotherhood that the Enclave, despite being without a president or a colonel since Autumn went MIA, were reasonably organized through the chaos, keeping contact with other Enclave survivors and outposts through the wasteland. The Brotherhood had their work cut out for them, alright. Liberty Prime, accompanied once again by the Brotherhood and the Lone Wanderer, began to storm the satellite array, making short work of the squads of Enclave's troopers and the turrets in their path. Prime and the soldiers made it very close to the entrance until they came across an obstruction in their path. As Prime began to process how to take down the wall in front of them, an orbital strike of all things was shot down from the heavens at the robot, destroying him. The Brotherhood of Steel took a heavy blow after the robot was destroyed, and without Liberty Prime, the Enclave could easily retake the upper hand in this war. The missile strike shattered Liberty Prime into pieces, his head, legs and arms broken off and mangled beyond repair. It would take years for the Brotherhood to repair the damage dealt here, but one thing was for sure, the mission must continue. The Enclave must be stopped. Within the next decade, things within the Brotherhood began to shift once more. The inner workings that founded the Capital Wasteland chapter's mission began to fade, and before long the Brotherhood of Steel were back to their traditional ways under Elder Arthur Maxson, a young and headstrong leader. With the outcasts reinducted into the fold after Maxson's traditional views on the original Brotherhood faith were evident, the discovery of the T-60C power armor and the completion of the Pridwin, the Brotherhood of Steel set a new objective. After having scouts and recon squads report concerning things from Massachusetts, their new goal was to reach an institute in the Commonwealth, which was allegedly a large scientific division who had the power to create androids. After more information is shed about this mysterious institute, the Brotherhood begin to conquer the Commonwealth by taking military checkpoints and harvesting all technology needed to break the institute. After realizing there is no real way in apart from teleportation, Elder Maxon chooses upon his new outsider to assist his proctors and scribes into the fixing of their old robot friend. Liberty Prime is repaired, and he is used to blast a hole into the institute and finally end the war against them. After the war is won, Liberty Prime was used at Boston Airport to watch over the Brotherhood of Steel and scare away any foes and possible infiltrators. This is the last known piece of information on Liberty Prime. I hope you enjoyed this tale of one of the Wasteland's most powerful robots, Liberty Prime. If you did, leave a like and share. This is the second last episode of our coverage on the Brotherhood of Steel. We are steadily approaching the next chapter in the Wanderer's story. So be sure to subscribe if you don't want to miss out on what's to come. I'd like to thank the Wanderer supporters for pledging a small donation every month. Cypriot Fox, Bonk, Lovable Douchebag, Splicer87, The Useless Show, and last but not least, I'd like to welcome back Stewdog. If you would like access to early access content, exclusive editing live streams, raw audio for videos, and much more, consider becoming a Wanderer supporter today for just £1 a month. Thank you very much for watching, everybody, and
America will never fall to communist invasion.